Spurs win by 1-0. Is the shot on goal the shot that scored? Does that count? If it is an own goal, Steve.
Well, that's debatable. There should be an asterisk above that because that could be the own goal, as you said.
United had plenty of chances but couldn't get across the line. Take a look at Spurs in recent finals, of course. Lost against City back in the League Cup in 2021. Lost against Liverpool. The game you're out, Stevie, of course, in Spain. Lost against Chelsea as well, Manchester United. And you have to go back to 2008 for the last time they won a trophy, and that was, of course, the League Cup. Right then, for more on this, we welcome in Frank Leboeuf. We'll hear from Frank in a moment.
Well, he delivered his second season.
He did. He promised he was going to do it, and that's exactly what he has done.
Let's be honest, congratulations, Tottenham. Probably were not the better side on the night in terms of creating chances. You saw the graphic there. But gritted it out in the end, and he made some defensive changes, bringing on Danso for taking off one of the Brennan Johnson. So he went to a 5 at the back, something we've sort of criticised him for, but he realised that it was... And actually, they set their stall out pretty early in the second half.
Very early.
Which I thought was a little worrying. Mm-hmm. They had one chance, remember when Udogie went through and he tried to play it to Solanke. Solanke had a bad touch. It's really the only time they threatened. They really didn't threaten in the second half, and they basically set their stall out and said, we're going to play a defensive camped-in set-up and you break us down. Now, that's a little bit dangerous, but United's finishing has been poor. They have nobody with real quality up front. We saw that finish from Bruno Fernandes. So congratulations to Tottenham. I mean, Man United can't win anything, can they? They just... You could sit with them and play any sport, it wouldn't matter. They just can't win anything at the moment. And if we're being honest about it, the standard of the game itself for a European final was a shocker. The actual standard, there was some end-to-end stuff, there was a good atmosphere, but the standard of the passing, the standard of the ability for players to put their foot on the ball, Stevie, it was an absolute shocker in terms of a spectacle.
And that's why sometimes we did get kind of end-to-end, because nobody could keep it. Nobody could actually control it long enough to actually control any part of the play. I think maybe Spurs in the first half had a 5-minute spell where they kind of pushed United back, but other than that, too many mistakes. Let's be honest, no real chances either. I mean, Man United, there wasn't a chance where we were saying they should have scored. I mean,
we were expecting it at some stage later on. Harry Maguire obviously going up front, given what's happened in this
and you should.
Before, but nothing
listen, you're 1-0 down in a European Cup final. You should be taking chances, putting balls in the box, and just generally throwing the kitchen sink at it. But there was no real quality with anything they did, which is why either Tottenham got a body in the way, or the ball was off target.
When I was looking at Tottenham at the start of the game, I know Heung-min Son has had a poor season or two, but you thought, really, Richarlison on the left side ahead of the club captain, a guy who's been a stalwart for you, and then Heung-min Son comes on in the second half and you see, I can see that now. Because he looks as if he's...
Slow motion.
He looks as if he's gone a little bit, so the manager realised that. They at least had some discipline in the middle of the park, because in previous games, Bissouma and Sarr have sort of lost the plot. They didn't have a lot of threat up front. They defended well when they had to. Keeper made some good saves. Looked a little dicey at times, but they got the job done. But part of the reason they got the job done is because they've got nothing up front, United. You know, Rasmus Højlund is workmanlike. He runs about. He's physical, but it's long past the day where he's been good enough to play for Manchester United. That being said, though, he's not alone.
No,
there's a bunch of players in this United side that now they're not making the Champions League. They're 16th in the Premier League, so they're not getting a lot of cash from the Premier League. They're getting nothing from European football. What are they going to do? How many tea ladies are they going to sack? How many groundsmen are they going to usher out to try and save a few quid here and there to be able to spend money? I mean, it was embarrassing what Ineos were doing last year, and it's only going to get worse. And now they have a bunch of players who can't win anything. They're just not good enough. Maybe Bruno Fernandes on a better team. But the bulk of them just not good enough on massive wages, and they are absolutely stuck with him. Ruben Amorim, if he stays, by the way, and that's a big if he stays, is absolutely stuck. When he talks about, you know, my project, my plan, making players fit the system. How are you going to get these players out to get these other players in?
I want to talk about Manchester United a little bit later on. I just want to focus on Spurs for the moment. I think, have we fixed Frank's technical issues? Frank, overall, obviously, you can argue that they weren't the best team on the night, but in the end, they get the trophy. As a player, as much as we can poo-poo the quality of this final and indeed this competition overall, how much do you listen to that noise, or how much do you just really enjoy tonight if you're a Spurs player?
You don't care. You don't care because the most important thing is to win. And I always say that. There is I would say, a minimum level, and we couldn't find it today. But we are in a neutral point of view, not in the squad, not under pressure, and the players, the Spurs, I mean, they're so happy. They don't care the way they play. I think they were resilient. They worked hard defensively, especially the second half, and it was a good change from Postecoglou to put Danso at the back to help the players. And I have to say that the four at the back did done the job with Vicario. And when Vicario made a mistake, Van de Ven made what it was a dream for me to do one day, maybe in a final, make that kind of save. That's unbelievable. I mean, that will be seen forever. And Van de Ven, I've shown today that he was a great defender. But again, yeah, it doesn't really matter the way you played. I played a European Cup final, Cup Winners' Cup with Chelsea, and we played against Stuttgart. I can tell you that wasn't the best final ever, for sure, from far. But I don't even remember how bad or how good we played. I only remember that Zola scored and we won, and we went back home with a cup. That's the only thing matters.
Yeah, the players won't care. I'm talking from a neutral point of view and from a spectacle.
Yes.
But then again, maybe that was asking a bit much, because we've watched a lot of these teams this year, and the fact that they're in the final is a head-scratcher in the first place, and I think it tells you a lot about the standard of the rest of this Europa League competition. But they made it on merit, but I was just hoping it was going to be a little bit better in terms of quality than it was. But if you're a Tottenham fan or a Tottenham player, you absolutely don't care. No. You just wanted to defend that lead at the end. They were throwing their bodies in the way, which you would expect. They got to the end line and that's all they had to do, and fair play to them for that.
I'm sorry, we're not sentimental. Spurs have just won, but I'm going to ask the question. Is it enough to keep him in the job?
I actually don't think it is. I'm being honest, because we've sat here and talked about Eric Ten Hag winning Carabao Cups and FA Cups, and looking at the league form, which, by the way, was better than Tottenham. It wasn't great, but it was better than Tottenham, their position. And he's had a similar amount of time as Eric Ten Hag had at the time when we were discussing this. The question here is, this is a great night for Tottenham. It's a great night for Postecoglou and the club and the supporters, and they will enjoy it. But they're in the Champions League next year, and not to be embarrassed, you're going to have to go and spend a couple of $100 million minimum. Does Daniel Levy believe that if there's $200 million plus to spend on this squad, that he can give that to Postecoglou, bearing in mind where they finished 17th in the league, bearing in mind their form, bearing in mind their scattergun approach to a lot of these games? I think there's a big question in the coming days and weeks whether Daniel Levy will just pull the plug. He's fired Conte, he's fired Mourinho, he's fired some bigger hitters than Ange Postecoglou. But this is a big call, because it's a big night for the football club. It's a big night for these players and these supporters. But is that enough to not look forward and say, right, great, but what do we do in the next couple of years?
Go on, Frank.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, because while Craig was talking, and I 100% agree with him, I think Postecoglou shouldn't stay. It's sad, he won something, but he proved for the past 2 years that he was incapable of making that team better. When you look at the collective squad, they're nowhere near it. They don't know how to play together, they don't defend well, they don't even attack well. If you take the individuals, you have great players. I mean, you cannot say that the 11 players played today, they have qualities. And if you manage to do something good with them, I'm pretty sure you can have something more than decent. So it's up to the coach to do that. I want to believe that there is a future with that squad, with some players adding, like Craig said, like 2-3 other players, there is something you can do with them. I mean, you see at the back, there is not much to, except maybe Vicario, not much to move. In the middle of the park, the players, they work hard, and today they've been good enough to compete with Manchester United. But overall, yeah, the season showed the reality of that squad. They weren't good enough. Who is responsible for that? I guess 50-50. The player didn't do enough, but Postecoglou has to be responsible in a certain way, in a certain amount for the bad season they had.
Would he walk away? In terms of going to Daniel Levy and saying, listen,
no chance.
You may be going to sack me, I don't know. I could go out on a high here.
Would you walk away?
What
would you do if you're Postecoglou?
I'm walking away in a million years.
No, because you believe that you've got it.
Well, what I'm saying is, if he thinks that he's going to get the sack,
before you push.
and I know this sounds really crazy because they've just won the Europa League, but you cannot finish 17th. You cannot put a performance in that is just a tad better than Ipswich and Leicester and survive. So are we saying if United had scored 2 late goals and Anana had come up and scored the winner in the 97th minute, he would definitely have been sacked, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
So what's the difference? I mean, the difference is you've sort of crawled over the line in the Europa League.
It's the similarities with Ten Hag beating a hungover City in the FA Cup final.
It would be double standards for me to sit here and not give him the same appraisal that we gave the Manchester United manager. And that's unfortunate but that's where we are. Now, the point I'm making is, if they're trying to save face here, he doesn't want to sack him to look bad to the fans because they've just won. He doesn't want to get the sack. Maybe they could sort of meet in the middle with some sort of, and I'm only surmising here, with some sort of financial settlement where he says, no, I've done my bit here at Tottenham, thanks very much. A couple of million in the bank from Daniel Levy. Not the full whack, but a few million here, and I'll walk away into the sunshine.
Why would Postecoglou do that? Why would he do that? Postecoglou is in a position now where he will get a decent job. If they let him go, which I'm in agreement, if you look at the big picture, 17th isn't acceptable. Completely unacceptable.
When you mean a decent job, who else in the Premier League are taking the guy that's just finished 17th?
I'm just saying, if you're Postecoglou, there's no reason for you to walk away. It's like, I've just won Tottenham a European trophy, the first trophy of any sort in 17 years. Do you know what? If you don't want me, pay me.
Right.
Why is he going to go, well, let's come to an agreement? Not a chance, there's not a hope he's going to do that. And again, just bare facts. Again, I agree with you. If he loses this game, there is absolutely no question he's out the door. But he didn't lose the game. And they're now in the Champions League. And you know that up the stair are going, oh, wait a minute, we just want a European. They're thinking about it. And the fact that they're thinking about it means there's a possibility that they don't let him go.
Meanwhile, we've got to talk about Manchester United. This is surely yet another new low in a sense that everything was hung on tonight. It was about, right, OK, maybe this could be the turning point
Which is equally as wrong as the Tottenham scenario.
Yeah, but I suppose the argument is Ruben Amorim hasn't had the same amount of time that the likes of Ten Hag and indeed Postecoglou have had. So the question is...
No, but they've spent a lot more money and the results have been appalling.
Have you seen enough from Amorim to suggest that he has what it takes to turn this team around?
No, absolutely not.
So what do you do if you're Manchester?
What have we seen? What have we seen?
We've seen a manager that's...
You sack another manager now to bring in another one?
They can't afford to sack him. That's the only reason he'll stay. Otherwise, he should be out the door.
And that's their problem, because they've caused this problem.
Yes.
Because they hung on to Eric Ten Hag.
Too long. And then they left him with less time to work. Now they would lose even more face firing Ruben Amorim, which I don't think they'll do. But what gets me with him is he's so steadfast in this system. As if like three or four players is going to make it into Milan, who play this system. I'm fed up talking about this system, to be honest with you. It's about players. Yes.
Yep.
Right? It's about players. 3 at the back, 4 at the back.
Yeah. So if it's about players, has he just been given a terrible hand?
He's not been given a very good hand, but he has played his hand terribly. Right? He has not adjusted. He has really not made any of them better. You know, apart from chucking Harry Maguire up front at the end of games. Who really has got better? I mean, they've been okay, some of the performances.
They haven't, Craig.
No, I mean, from a player's perspective, some of the players, he's not like taking any players to the next level. You went, oh, he was really poor when Ten Hag. Now look at how this guy's playing. I mean, Bruno Fernandes has been their standout player, but a standout player from what position? It has been mediocre all the way through, and he's quite frankly looked like a guy who just doesn't have the answer. His only answer is, this is my system. And it's almost like, if you give me a year, 2 years, 5 years, maybe I'll have the players to get it right. He's just not adjusted. But they won't sack him. Mark my words, they won't sack him, because I don't think they get the money to sack him. And it would just tell you that all these people that they've brought in to make decisions under some Jim Ratcliffe and the guy that was the Olympic bike coach, who I don't know what even knows a football's round, Sir Dave Brailsford, they would have just been making themselves look foolish for some of these decisions.
They were mediocre when he came in.
Yeah.
And they're worse now.
I know.
Yeah.
So there is not a single thing that you can turn around and say that Amorim has done to make this team better. All he's done is make it worse.
Yeah.
And he's trying to convince us with his talk about, well, you can see this is what we're trying to do. Well, I can't see. I don't know about you two. Are you, Frank? I can't see anything. I don't know what they're trying to do. Absolutely no idea. And this, he keeps falling on this, well, we didn't get time on the training field.
You've had time now.
He's had... Listen, players don't need to be on a training field day in, day out for 6 months to figure out what they've got to do. It's tweaks. When you get to the standard of the Premier League and the European tournaments, it's about tweaking people's positioning or tweaking little decisions that you need to make in certain situations. This isn't a under 10s where you've got to start from the scratch. So all his talk it's really not getting them anywhere. It's making them look a little unaware of actually surroundings.
We've just talked about Postecoglou in the same vein about, two managers in the European final. We're talking about them keeping their job. But at least Postecoglou, right, although they have gone downhill fast, at least for 6 months when he came in, we're talking about making a difference.
Yes, yeah.
For 6 months when he came in, he took this team that was just unwatchable into a team that was top of the league. They were, for at least 5 or 6 months, played some of the best football they'd seen at Tottenham for years, some of the most entertaining football in the Premier League. So he did make a difference. And then it fell away for whatever reason, him or the injuries or a bit of everything. But as Stevie said, Amorim has come in and has literally made no difference. None. At least Postecoglou come in and Peter went like that for 6 months.
Yes.
Holy smokes, this could be brilliant.
Yeah.
And then it faltered. Amorim's come in and it's been one flat line of just bang average performances. And that, if you're a United fan. And by the way, they are in the table. Both these teams are in the Premier League table where they deserve to be.
Frank?
Yeah, I want to think about Amorim and the fact that he was the head coach of a team who just won the league in Portugal. Of course, we're not going to compare the Premier League with the Portuguese league, but this team, the Sporting Portugal, they're absolutely fantastic. And in Europe, when even Benfica or Porto plays, they're very, very good teams. So if he was capable of doing that with Sporting Portugal, I think when he came to Manchester United, he thought he could do the same. But I think he realized the player he had in charge only when he came and he arrived, and it was impossible to find a link between each other, that they weren't ready to play and they couldn't understand each other. And that maybe it's why he said, oh, we need more time. Well, it's impossible to work like that. I will have to change everything. This is what he said at a certain point when he realized that it was impossible to work with that squad. And is he responsible for that? I think he's responsible for having said yes to the board to take charge of that squad. But when he started to work with them, he finally realized that it was impossible, like any others, to work. That's the biggest problem that Manchester United will face. That it's impossible to change quickly that squad and to make it a better team. They will have to go step by step, getting rid of some of them if they can, and buy some others. So it will take time. So Amorim shouldn't be sacked for me, but is he responsible for making the team worse? I'm not sure about that. I think the players, they're fully responsible for their acts.
But let's look at it this way. If only one of the teams in the bottom three, and I know it hasn't happened, if only one of the teams in the bottom three had put up a fight this year, right? Either of these two teams in the final tonight could easily have been in the bottom three and been relegated.
Yep.
It would only have taken one of the teams, which we didn't get. But sometimes you have a team comes up and they put up a spirited fight, they can end up 14th, 15th, maybe mid-table. If that had happened, Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United could have been playing the Championship next season. That's the only reason they are still in the division, is that the bottom three were cast adrift. Had one of them been anywhere decent, because we know Wolves picked up, we know the others generally, West Ham didn't really, but Wolves picked up from a bad position. But if one of them had stepped out just after Christmas and put in a performance to the end of the season, one of these two teams would have been relegated.
But don't you think that they would both have changed slightly? You've got to think that if either of the two of them felt the way they've gone about. Well, you've got Amorim who says you've got Manchester United and Amorim saying this is how the team's going to play, right? He's also saying that I've not had any time on the training field. So if you haven't got any time on the training field to really get your team to where you want it, then you have to try and get some results. Well, and then at the end of the season, you can start again. Yeah. Now, they never did that. Now, was that because they knew they were never going to get relegated? And he decided...
What an embarrassing conversation to have.
Well, it is. I mean, it really is.
The old adage when you were fighting at the bottom used to be you had to get to 40 points, which hasn't always been the case in latter years. But it used to be in the day, if you got to 40, you were kind of safe. They're on 38 and 39.
Yes.
Kind of tells you all about it. Now, this is all sort of hypothetical stuff because they did not get relegated. But the point is, in some of the other seasons, had they performed like this, they would have been damn close.
Good news, though, is there'll be plenty of time for Amorim to work with his squad on the training ground because they got no European distractions next season. Yeah. They, of course, have not qualified for any of the 100 European competitions. Meanwhile, for Spurs, they are in the Champions League. And how they love playing Manchester United this season. Just to confirm, they played them 4 times. They've won every single match against United. They did so, of course, today in the Premier League. They've done a double over them, and of course in that epic quarter-final as well in the League Cup.